We are live in about, we actually live.
What what's up, everybody? How's it going today? I'd like to welcome y'all back to the Real Talk with Real Estate Investors show. Boy, we've got a special guest on the show for you guys today. He's actually a real estate entrepreneur and business coach that I've gotten to know for just a bit. He's helped folks within the real estate investing and other businesses all throughout the globe. He's a former Big Four accountant and investor with millions of holdings in real estate, as well as helped others to transact millions of dollars in real estate transactions as well. He is actually the host of Before the Millions, which is broadcast over 100 countries worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Daray Olaleye. How's it going? And I think I messed that up a little bit.
No worries, Trevor. No worries, my man. I'm excited to be on your show. I'm excited to hopefully add some value to your viewers and your listeners. And I'm excited to get started. So yeah, thanks for having me on. And hopefully, again, we can get some individuals to their real estate goals.
That's right, man. Well, we want to say thanks again for coming on today, man. It's an exciting time for us. You know, as I had said before, I had a chance to go on your show just a few weeks back, the Before the Millions. It's an incredible show that you've got going on there, and it's really helping a lot of folks out, man. And I'm looking forward to you sharing with my audience or our audience and our tribe, some things as well that can help them along the way. So, man, I just want to kind of take it on back, from the beginning, kind of give us a little bit of a backstory.
Man, so let's see, where do we want to start? It's funny because I went through so much during college and after college, but I was always, let's even take it back a little bit further, Trevor. I as a kid, maybe I was not even a teenager yet, 11, 12 years old. I stayed in a quaint two-bedroom, or yeah, I think it was 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom home on a rough side of Houston, Texas. And my mom was a struggling entrepreneur, and she had been an entrepreneur all her life. She had moved to the States. She's originally from Nigeria. She had moved to the States when she was 18. And at a point in time, we stayed right beside her best friend. And her best friend had 2 kids. My mom has 2 kids. So her kids were a little bit older than me and my sister, but ultimately we got along really well. And I would go over there, I would play video games with the oldest kid, which is a guy. We'd play a ton of video games. Like back in the day, I think it was like Taken and Mario Kart and all this other stuff. Like we played all those things. And then with his sister, who was still older than me slightly, maybe like 3 or 4 years, we would play a board game. We'd play a board game called Monopoly. I'm sure everybody here has heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
And little insight on me. I'm really particular when it comes to learning strategies and being the best. So when I would play her in Monopoly, Trevor, I would lose to her literally every single time. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, how do I figure this game out? How do I beat her? What are some strategies, techniques? And it's not like the internet today where you can just Google Monopoly strategies and you'll have 50 million strategies. I had to figure it out. Ultimately, we played enough times where I figured out that the way to win Monopoly, and this is just my personal bias and preference, it's got me more wins than losses, and I haven't verified this online or anything, but for me, the way to win Monopoly is to purchase the board spaces with the most foot traffic and purchase the board spaces with the highest rents. And that's almost like how we invest in real estate today.
Sure.
And it's crazy to think about, but when I started purchasing and trading for all the railroads and then purchasing Park Place and Boardwalk, I was unstoppable. That's a little cheat code, like you like to say. But that was really just a small example into how my mind started working and how I started thinking about life, business, real estate, and all that good stuff. So fast forward a few years, now I'm in college. Trevor, I had no idea that I was going to be a real estate investor. No idea. I had no idea that I had any interest in real estate whatsoever. All I knew was that I wanted to be wealthy and I wanted to be successful. I knew that in high school and middle school and elementary, I had been primed to be wealthy and to be successful. And I'm not saying that with any type of arrogance or cockiness or anything, but it was like instilled in me. If you know about foreign parents, like they do not play. They do not play. So on top of that, it's just like, well, you know, you must be like, there's no option. You must be successful. And a person like me, that was a lot of weight on my shoulders, not knowing what the whole world had to offer, not knowing all the possible options and strategies. Again, that's how my mind works. So when I got to college, they asked me what my major was going to be. And I was like, I don't know. No idea. Now, mind you, Trevor, my little sister, she is 7 years younger than me. When she was 7 years old, right, she's now graduating from Baylor, top of her class. When she was 7 years old, she knew that she was going to be an OBGYN at 7 years old. Trevor, in the next 15 years, she has not wavered from that plan. She's just one of those people who knows exactly what she wanted to do from such a young age. I was the exact opposite. Trevor, no idea. No,
It was
but
the
I'm
same for me, man. Absolutely. I got to college just because I was supposed to go, and then you know, it took a couple years worth of courses, and they're like, okay, pick a major. I'm like, well, shoot, what's available? You know, like what's going to be the easiest to get my paper, right? You know, so
Exactly.
I feel you, man.
And that's what it was for me. So I thought about, you know, also what's available, but what's stable, right? What can I do? And I started to think, all right, well, if I'm going to be a successful person, and I kind of had an idea, I may be an entrepreneur, I may be a business owner, but I didn't know how that was going to come about. So I was trying to think of a major that no matter how deep I got into it, no matter how good I was, no matter how bad it was, how great the pay was, how bad the pay is, I would be okay. Like, again, we're going through one of the biggest changes, economic shifts right now, right? And I wanted to have a job and find a job that would always be sustainable. So I did the boring thing. I was great with numbers, and I did the boring thing. I decided to be an accountant. So I asked my friends, I asked teachers and professors, hey, what's this whole accounting thing? How does it work and all this good stuff? So this is what they told me. You want to go after certain types of accounting firms called the Big Four accounting firms. Now, if you guys don't know what Big Four accounting is, it's like the Harvards, the Princetons, the Yales of accounting. There's only 4 of those firms in the entire world. They're international firms. They're the biggest firms literally in the world. And if you get into any of those firms, it's like an Exxon or a Shell. You have it made. Like, all accountants are going to be jealous of you. Everybody's going to be like, wow, like you work for one of these firms. That's insane. How did you get in? It's that hard to get in. So they told me if I got into one of those firms and I worked my butt off, I worked for 10, 15 years, I'd become what's called a partner at the firm. I'd be able to buy into the company. And at that point, partners on average, they make about $500,000 a year. So this was appealing to me. Like 15 years, become a partner, live my best life, sign me up. What do I do? My GPA wasn't the best. I wasn't really participating in a whole lot of things as a freshman. But boy, once I had a vision, once I had a goal, I instantly joined 3 or 4 boards. I took an organization from maybe about 500 people to the largest organization at my campus. I mean, it was well over 5,000 people. I started sitting on boards that just faculty members were sitting on, and I became a prominent member at the university.
Wow.
Not only that, but I got my grades up. Now, they required 3.9s and 4.0s, and I didn't get it up that high. But when I approached them at the, what are they called? The mixers, I don't know. I approached them at one of the informationals, and with my charisma, with my track record, everybody had a 4.0. They did no extracurricular activities, but I ran the school. So it was just like, dude, like we would be insane not to have you. So evidently I got into one of these firms. I got a couple offers from some oil and gas firms as well, but I ultimately chose Big Four accounting, and I started working. And I thought that, wow, I know exactly what I'm doing. I have it made. I have a 15-year plan. This is going to be amazing. Trevor, year 1, I enjoy the perks of being a Big Four accountant because there are a lot of perks, right? I travel 24/7. We have Amex cards that we could swipe. We have 4- and 5-star hotel stays. We have unlimited eating, right? And all these things sounded appealing up until I got about a year in, and they started to drain on me, right? It went from unlimited eating to the only reason that they're feeding us so much is because we're working 80 hours a week, and they need us to continue working and pushing out and cranking out numbers. And I started to hate it. I started to get, get unhealthy because I mean, it's just so much food, right? The travel, they'd call me about a week, maybe sometimes 3 days before an assignment. Hey, Daray, you got to go to San Francisco for 3 weeks. Mind you, Trevor, I love San Francisco. I'm always in San Francisco, and I was excited to go. But as soon as I got there, I realized, oh, I forgot I'm an accountant. I literally did not see daylight from the time I stepped foot in San Fran that trip until it was time for the engagement to be over. 3 weeks straight, I worked from Monday to Friday. We worked from 8 a.m. to maybe 3 a.m. No lie. We'd go home for 3-4 hours, get some sleep, and do it again. And you would think we get Saturday and Sunday off, but we didn't. On Saturdays, we'd still come into the office. We'd work from maybe about 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then on Sunday, we'd work from our hotel room. We'd all be on Zoom together, still working from about 12 to 6 every single day. No breaks, no nothing. Trevor, I was so miserable. I said, wow, this is not what I thought my life would be like. I knew that, like, if you go to my Instagram now, you see, like, I travel all over the world. I love traveling. It's my number one hobby. From the age of 6 months, I've been on a plane. I'm always on the plane. I'm constantly moving. I'm constantly interacting. I'm constantly exploring. I love travel, right? And I took about a year off between college and starting at Big Four, and I traveled around the world that year. I had a whole lot of fun. And immediately when I got to Big Four, all of that stopped, and I felt so sick. And I was
going
just
through
like,
that corporate grind that a lot of folks do, right?
yeah. I was just like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. How do people do this for 40, 50 years? Trevor, then I get my first check. I get my first check as an adult, and I'm thinking I'm about to make all this money, and literally 50% of my check was gone before I saw it. And I thought it was a mistake. So I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, like they gave me half of the money that they owe me. Like, is there like pay periods? Is it off? Like, is it like 1 week and then 3 weeks? How does this work? She's like, oh no, honey, that's taxes.
I know all about those.
She's like, oh no, honey, that's taxes. I was like, is this normal? Does everybody, like, is this how everybody's check looks? She was like, yeah, that's American taxes. I was like, so you mean to tell me that, and this is how I rationalized it, for 50% of the year, because I mean, not only are the taxes coming out of your check, but you still pay state tax. You still pay sales tax and other taxes that are outside of that. So even if you're just getting 20, 30, 40, upwards of almost 40% coming out of your check, you're still paying other taxes. So collectively in a year, you're paying about 50% in taxes almost as an employee. And it was like, so I'm working from, and you guys still with me?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're here. We're here.
It was,
I don't know what happened, but we're here.
Let's there for a second there. Yeah.
It was like, I was working from January to June just to pay Uncle Sam. Like, think about it. Everybody out there who's an employee right now, you're working half of your year just to pay the government. Half of you, like that is insane. Everybody, like, you guys can see, like, I'm so passionate about this. Everybody does this in the entire US. It's so normal. It's so normal that nobody thinks twice about it anymore.
Right.
Nobody even questions it. But since that was my first year in the workforce, I was just like, this can't be real. There's no way people live like this for 40, 50 years. I don't believe it. There has to be another way.
No doubt.
So through that time period, again, I got disgruntled with the work I was doing, because you have to think about it. I was a Big Four accountant. So I'm literally adding 1 + 1 = 2, right? I'm looking at Excel spreadsheets all day. So there's no fulfillment in the work that I'm doing, okay? Half of my money is going to the government, okay? The second half of my money, I'm fresh out of college. A lot of people that are watching this are fresh out of college. The second half of my money was going to the bank in the forms of credit card bills. If you pay rent, or maybe you pay a mortgage, that goes to the bank, right? Your car note, right? Your student loans. The second half of the year, again, I have nothing left. So I'm not being fulfilled at work. Half my money is going to taxes. Half my money is going to the bank. And at the end of the year, I have nothing to show for anything.
And busting your ass and grinding it every day,
ridiculous.
80 hours a week, like with
Dude.
nothing. I know what
Dude.
that's like, man. I'm sure a lot of folks listening, are feeling it right now. They're going through the same thing.
So again, I almost got into a depressive state. And this really happened during that San Francisco trip. And there's this woman, I call her my guardian angel to this day, but I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know what moved her to do this, but she got into work one day and she was like, Daray, I've been reading this book and I don't know, something just told me to hand it to you, to let you read it. And mind you, Trevor, I hadn't read a single book my entire adult life up until this woman approached me. So that means from 18 to 25, I hadn't read a single book. I tried to read 48 Laws of Power 6 times, right? I would start it and then I would stop. I'd be on an airplane. I'd read a chapter and I would put it down for 6 months. I wasn't a reader, but what's crazy, when I was younger, I loved reading. But when she gave me this book, Trevor, and everybody here will know the book is called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
No,
when she gave me this book,
classic.
My mind went like, this is like the Da Vinci Code.
No doubt.
This is the language I've been trying to speak a certain language and people didn't understand it. And now I see the interpretation of the language I've been trying to speak in this book. This is it's just like, people hear about real estate investing, they hear about entrepreneurship. You guys know the quote, like 90% of millionaires have, made their money through real estate. You hear that all the time. People hear it all the time, but nobody feels it viscerally. And up until that point, I had never heard of real estate investing. I've never heard of that concept. Like, it's crazy because I was a Big Four accountant and I was auditing the financial statements of some of the biggest real estate companies in the world. But for some reason, I couldn't draw the parallel as to how this would make sense for a single person, a 25-year-old like me.
Sure.
I just thought it was something that big companies did. So this was the very first time where I understood, I saw that there was a possible out, there was freedom, there was something called financial freedom, there was entrepreneurship, there was investing. I was just like, this is insane. So unlike most people who hear these things but don't feel it viscerally, the very first time I ever heard of these concepts, I took action immediately. Trevor, I bought my first property 30 days after reading that book.
Wow.
No real estate.
Wow, you took immediate action with it then, huh?
You know why?
I would love to.
Going back to what most people do, I knew that I didn't want to be like most people. I knew that, and I don't know how I had the foresight then, but hindsight, I would always have done what I did. But back then, some reason, I knew that if I didn't get started immediately, I would end up like everybody else who says they're going to do something, who believes they're going to do something, but actually don't take action. So here was my mindset. You know what? I don't care how bad this deal is. I don't care if I fail on this deal. I don't care if I completely, just utterly, this deal is in shambles. My mindset was that I've made a decision. I've decided. The Latin, the root word of decide is when you take the last 3 letters, IDE, that means to cut off. So pesticide, genocide. When you decide something, you cut off any other possibility of any other route. So I had made a decision. Daray is going to be a real estate investor. It's a decision. It's made. No matter if I'm successful in year 1 or year 21, I'm going to be a real estate investor. So who cares if I mess up on this? This was my mindset. Who cares if I mess up on this deal? I need this experience. I need this education, and I need to go ahead and get that under my belt so that deal number 2 is going to be that much better. So I was like, let me go bomb on a deal real quick so I could keep going and learn from that and have the connections and have the experience, right? But guess what? It was a great deal. It was a great deal. And I think that should be an eye-opener for a lot of people. I just knew it was going to be bad, but at the same time, I didn't care because I made a decision. I wanted to be a real estate investor for the rest of my life. And I don't know how many people can actually say that.
Isn't that funny how that
Not
works
many.
too, is that you would never had an opportunity to experience that good deal, right away if you had never just decided to take action immediately. You know what I mean? And I think that's what a lot of folks go through, is that they're more fearful of what they have currently to lose as opposed to what they're missing out on, right? And so, man, I really appreciate that attitude, man, for sure.
100%.
I can relate a lot with your story, man, especially when in the way you took action, you know, and how and the outcome that you had, and eventually was because you wanted to live a complete different life. I think that's a great example for the people listening to this right now. You know that we are always one decision away from changing our lives. Like the things that you don't know right now, like you took that, you pick up that book, and you read it and change your life. It is the same thing. You know, a lot of people is living in fear right now. A lot of people is like, I don't know what to do. I would like to be a real estate investor. I would like to be XYZ, whatever they want to be, but they don't take, they don't know that it's just like pick up a book. That can be the answer for you to find the path to your goal.
Yeah, 100%. I totally resonate with that. I think about, you know, my biggest advice in that subject matter, because a lot of people, they don't get started because they don't know what to do or what they want to do. They're like, yeah, you know, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be a business owner, I want to be a real estate investor, but what would I do? Like, you know, what business or what investment strategy, right? Like, how do I go about that? And I struggled with that for a little bit, but my answer to everyone who has that onus, who has that, man, I want to get started, but I don't know what to do. It's what I'm going to say is going to be a little bit counterintuitive. And this is what worked for me. Again, I didn't do this on purpose. I didn't know that this is how it was going to turn out, but it was through trial and error. So when I first started business, after I bought my first property, I opened another 7 businesses that year as a full-time employee. Never had a business in my life. I opened another 7 businesses that same year, 2016.
Wow.
I opened up a drop shipping business, which has remained my baby to like up until last year. It's a completely
I love drop shipping
business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a completely passive business. I love that business model.
Sure.
I opened up a lead gen business. I started Kindle publishing. I hadn't started creating courses at this point. But I opened up about 7 businesses outside of real estate. And here was my hope. I was in so much pain at work that I was just hoping that if any one of these businesses showed some type of life, I am going to put all of my effort and energy in that business. But until then, I kept building different businesses until I saw what worked. And although for me, it was a terrible time in my life, I made so many mistakes, and I can go back and I can look back and I'd be like, Daray, you should never do that. Like anybody I give advice to, you should never do that. Don't open up 8 businesses. I mean, at the end of that year, because I didn't know how business worked, I didn't know business required marketing dollars, right? Going back to your expertise and cheat codes and Facebook ads, like I didn't know you had to put out marketing dollars and how much of marketing you had to put out for each of the businesses. By the end of that year, I was flat broke. I was done. I was devastated. I was just like, oh my goodness, how do I get to 2017? And, you know, it's funny, but before you get to the success story, it's just like, well, all those things that I did, all those businesses that I started showed me what I don't want. It showed me what doesn't work. It gave me a reason to pivot. You cannot pivot if you do not get started.
Man,
like it's just like if I look at all 8 of those businesses and I'm still at my starting point, and I just look at them like, and I need to pick one, I will never fully be able to pick one if I just stay here, because every single business that I look at, it looks amazing, but also I see all the negatives, right? But this sounds good, it looks good, but I don't know. Let me look for something else. This sounds good, it looks good. I don't know. Let me look for something else. For me personally, diving into every single one of those things took me off of the starting point. It gave me, you know, it's like, let's say, you know, everything is 100 meters ahead, and from here I can't see the finish line, right? But the further along I get, the more things become clearer to me. The more things open up for me, right? So, you know, give you one example. My very first course in 2017 was a house hacking course. Completely bombed, 0 sales, $0 in revenue, 0. But if I never created that course, I wouldn't have a 6-figure coaching business today. It's only because I created that course. That's the only reason. But if I would have sat on the fence, been like, I shouldn't create this course, I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna do really bad, nobody knows me, blah, 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 blah.
You wouldn't have any of it. Yeah.
So it's all about getting out of the starting blocks.
Sure.
And even if you're just like, dude, like, I don't know if this is for me, just try it. Because once you try it, you're gonna be in a new place. You're not gonna be at the start. You're gonna be 5 yards up, and you're going to be able to see new opportunities and new ideas. And you're going to be able to pivot from where you are now, but you can't pivot from the starting blocks if you never get out the starting blocks. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that.
That makes perfect sense, man. I appreciate you sharing that. That's powerful.
That's great.
Powerful information.
Which is awesome, you know, because it's just about to get started. It's just about to just do what you need to do in order, if you really want to tap into your dream life, you know. And you're a great example of that, man. I really appreciate you sharing that with us, because like especially in the real estate world, there's a lot of people, especially in this group, you know, there's a lot of people that they're just starting into this. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to start, what's the next step and all that stuff. But like you said, if you don't try, if you don't start, if you don't implement, if you don't try, whatever you have idea, you have where you can start, you're never going to learn what's the right direction to take your business off the ground.
Most def. So, you know, ultimately, when it comes to how to start, right? And this is just through my experience, you know, a lot of nomenclature is like ready, set, fire, ready, set, or ready, aim, fire, right? Because think about it. I mean, I'm not a hunter, but I would imagine if you're going hunting and you're hunting for, I don't know, you're hunting for deer. What do people hunt for? I don't know. If you're hunting for deer, right? And you're in the woods, you're in your camouflage, you're all, draped out, and you got your scope on. You got to be really quiet. You got to be really still. And you got to make sure that first shot hits your target, because you know, if it doesn't hit, that deer is gone. If it doesn't hit that deer, so you have to make sure that the plan that you have, it works the first time. Because deer, just pick, like, let's just say a deer is like a moving goal. Like, if you don't know what your goals are, if you don't know exactly where you want to be in 5 years, then obviously it's going to be very hard to hit that deer precisely. Because again, the deer is the goal, and it's just, it moves everywhere. It's too fast.
Sure.
But life is not like that. Life is more like target practice. It's more like a bullseye. If you know your goals, like if you know exactly where you want to be in 5 years, you're not aiming for a deer, you're aiming for a bullseye that doesn't move, because you concretely know what your goals are. So if the bullseye doesn't move, you don't have to camp out for 3, 4, 5 hours until you get the perfect shot. You don't have to ready, fire. You don't have to ready, aim, fire. But instead, you ready, fire, aim. You know why? Immediately after you fire, you're going to see exactly where your shot landed on that bullseye. And because you can see your results, you can immediately course correct. So you can let off 5, 10, 15, 20 shots in a minute and get better that much faster, because you're seeing the results and you're improving on those results. Again, if you know your goal, if you know exactly what you want to do, where you want to be, start firing as fast as possible at what doesn't work, and you're going to get closer and closer to that goal. Don't stay on the fence and aim for that deer, because again, that deer is going to take you hours and hours and hours, and if you miss, it's gone. Know what your goals are, and then start firing as fast as possible.
Man, I love that analogy. I couldn't have said it better myself. Let me ask you a question. So obviously you've had a lot of success in the industry, man, and you've been doing this for quite some time. What piece of advice might you give to somebody that's just right now that's watching this, hasn't gotten started yet, been thinking about this for quite some time? What do you do, or what advice would you give to not only get in the mindset to take action now, but also what is the first thing that you do to chase your first deal?
So I just did a Instagram live, like literally about 45 minutes ago. I was out on a walk, and I did 3 quick tips. It was about 50-second live. And here are those same 3 quick tips, because it's a very similar question. I think about how to get started in real estate. If you're ready to get started and you're just like, okay, I'm ready to get started, I just don't know what to do, these are the 3 things you should do. Number 1, find and choose a strategy, right? So Trevor and everybody who's listening, like, you guys have Trevor. You guys have the wholesale cheat code, right? But at the same time, Trevor brings on a ton of different people onto this show that have different niches. So ultimately, you start researching those niches. You start researching those strategies, and you find one that best suits you. Mm-hmm. Now, I have a guide. It's a free guide that kind of walks you through, because I always tell people my strategy, just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Like, I'm never going to push my strategy onto you. I'd rather you figure out what your strategy is based on where you are, where you want to go, and how long it's going to take you to get there. Because I'll use myself as an example. Hopefully I don't deviate so far that I forget the question. So bring me back to it, Trevor, because I'm good for that.
Oh, you're good, man.
So when I bought my first property, I went the traditional route, and I put down a $20K down payment, 18 and some change. And that down payment created a cash flowing property for me that gave me $250 a month. So the gross at the time was $1,500, and the net after all my bills and expenses and the mortgage and all that stuff is $250. So I was like, okay, cool. Again, I didn't know what I was doing. I happened up until that deal. So I was like, okay, cool. So I need, if my goal, and I think my goal was 10K to escape the rat race, to quit my job. That was my goal. So again, I had a bullseye. I didn't have a deer, just switching goals and not really knowing what to do. I had a bullseye. I wanted to escape the rat race. And then I made it quantifiable, right? Most people that I was talking to at the time, they said, yeah, it's going to take you about 10 years to build up your portfolio to get to where you need it to get to actually be able to do that. The really smart gurus in the industry are like, it can take you 5 years. Like you can, if you work really hard, it'll take you 5 years to get to your financial freedom goal. But I knew a law that was called Parkinson's law. And if you guys have never heard of Parkinson's law, it's a law that states that the time that you give an activity, that activity will expand to fill that time. Okay. So with that being said, if you have homework due next week and you don't decide to do it until 6 hours before it's due, you're going to get it done. Right. And it's crazy because you had a whole week to do it and you used the entire whole week to do it because you stalled for 6.5 days. That's called Parkinson's law. So I decided that I was going to use Parkinson's law to my advantage. I'm not going to give myself a 10 or a 5 year goal. I'm going to give myself a crazy goal of 2 years. And with that goal, one, it made action steps a lot more concrete because you only got 24 months to hit your goal. So you know much more viscerally in month one what you should be doing as opposed to a 10-year goal. You have no idea how year one should look, right? Sure. No idea. There's a book called The 12-Week Year, and it really breaks this down amazingly. So ultimately, I gave myself a 2-year goal to escape the rat race to hit my income goal. And again, so you have to bring me back to the question because I have a lot of different places I want to. What was the question again?
So the question that I was just asking is, for the folks that are listening, what advice would you give to them to take action now? Yeah.
Okay. So that goal of 10K set me up to start thinking about that goal of 10K in 2 years set me up to start thinking about how do I get there? But again, I didn't know then what I know now. And ultimately, if I would have went on that same trajectory of buying a property for $20,000 down payments, and every $20,000 down payment got me $250 in cash flow, because that's how I was looking at it, that meant I needed, for 10K, I needed another 39 more properties in 2 years. That is almost two properties a month.
Mm-hmm.
That is almost, and not only, as if that wasn't bad enough, how do you come up with 39 20K down payments as an employee? So I immediately started to realize either I need to change my goal of 2 years or I need to change my actions. So that's when I started figuring out different strategies and trying to change my actions. So this is why I say that ultimately, if you want to get started in real estate, the best place to start is not to listen to my podcast or listen to Trevor or to listen to or read Rich Dad Poor Dad. But again, how my guide kind of breaks it down, and I'll just give it to you guys here, so you guys gonna have to go download it. But how my guide breaks it down is, what do you want, right? Okay, me, I wanted to get 10K in 2 years, passive income, and escape the rat race. Okay, cool. Well, I kind of spilled the beans. I wanted to escape the rat race. That's what I wanted. Okay, what do you have? What are your experiences? What are your resources, right? At the time, again, I was a Big Four accountant auditing financial statements of some of the biggest real estate companies in the world. So somebody like me, it'd be easy for me to get into syndications, which is what I did next, right? But somebody who was a clerk at, Staples, they don't have that background. They don't have that experience. So you have to know what you're working with. It's okay wherever you are. It's 100% okay. But you also have to know where that is.
Mhm.
So what are your resources, right? And that, again, I just told you my resources was my knowledge. It could also be money. It could also be I got a whole lot of time. I got a part-time job. What are your resources? So where are you right now? Where are you trying to go? And how long do you want it to take for you to get there? For me, it was 2 years. Once you figure all those things out, and my guide helps you, it's an assessment, so it helps you figure all those things out, then I go over all the different strategies, not only mine, but all the different strategies that are in real estate. And we start breaking down how these strategies fit into your goals. So again, if you do that exercise in your head, and you have what you want, where you want to go, and how long it's going to take you to get there, you can start figuring out the strategies that are going to work best for you. So that's my biggest advice for people who are just now starting out. But again, my 3 tips. Tip number 1 is figure out your strategy. So if you want to use my guide, it's over at my website, beforethemillions.com/guide, and that'll help you figure out your strategy. So number 1 is figure out your strategy if you're just now starting. Number 2 is to get a system, implement a system that helps you pursue that strategy. So whether that means going to buy a course, whether that means going to hire a mentor, or going to a YouTube channel, which is my least favorite, but you have to have a system that's already proven. When I first got started, I just winged stuff. I went to YouTube, I went to books, I went to Trevor, I went to this guy, I went to everybody, and I just put a system together. I was like, hey, I got it, I'm an investor. But when I had problems, which I had a lot of problems, I didn't have a single person to turn to. Like, imagine if I turned to Trevor, I'm like, yo, like your cheat code is not working. Like, what's going on? You're like, dude, it's not my cheat code. It's the other things that you have in your system. You're not using my entire system. You're just using my cheat code. So obviously I don't know how to diagnose your problem. And I'm just like, oh, so I need to go follow one person's system from beginning to end, somebody who's done it successfully and who's helped other people do it successfully. So 1, get your strategy, choose your strategy. 2, find a system or a system owner to help you implement that strategy. And 3, never give up. Never give up. It's going to be hard. Robin Sharma, he's the author of the 5 a.m. Club and a few other amazing books. You know, he has a quote that says it's always messy at first, very hard in the middle, but it's beautiful at the end, right? So it's gonna be very hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. You guys already know that. Never give up. Just tweak and modify and implement until you get to your goal, until you get to success. Pick your strategy, pick your system, never give up.
Man, I love that. No doubt, man. That's deep. Hey, so I'd like to kind of turn the page just a little bit briefly and kind of have you tell us a little bit more about your podcast, Before the Millions. You know, the folks that you have on the show, you know, what the show's about, and also kind of go into a little bit more about your coaching and mentorship program.
100%. So Before the Millions, which I've had the pleasure of having you on, was an amazing episode. We talked about Facebook, we talked about wholesaling, we talked about your journey up until this point. It's been fascinating. And the podcast started back in 2017. And the funny thing about this podcast, I told you guys I went on to be a syndicator. So after I got a few deals under my belt, I wanted to just imagine one deal brought me $250 a month, and then I started doing multifamily. So I got a fourplex, right? And a fourplex, again, that added an extra $1,000 a month in cash flow. So I was just like, okay, well, if I can't do 39 more single families, why don't I just keep trying to scale and go bigger? So the very next deal after my fourplex is because I partnered with my mentor, was a 304 unit in Louisville, a suburb of Dallas. So you guys are familiar with
oh yeah,
the area.
right down the street.
Yep. So before that, like let's rewind like 9 months before that deal is on the table. I'm struggling to build up my portfolio as fast as I need to build it up. I got fired from my Big Four accounting job. I was on the verge of getting fired from my second job, which was as an investment analyst for a private equity hedge fund based out of New York. And the only reason I honestly a top performer, but the only reason that I was on the verge of that is because, again, I was a real estate investor, and these companies, there's so much internal data that's private that there's so many tools that we use that ultimately as an investor, they may start to feel as though I can use some of these tools to my advantage in my personal investing. So that time eventually came, but back then I kind of knew that would eventually come. So I was just like, all right, I need to scale fast. And again, there was another low point in my life where I was like almost dead broke. And I was just like, dude, like there's no way to scale with no money. This is before I learned a lot of creative financing techniques. I was like, there's no way to scale with no money. OMG, like what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Finally discovered that there was a term called syndications where you could use other people's money to buy deals. So I had no money and I still followed those rules. Pick a strategy, syndication, pick a system or a system owner. So I found a system owner, my mentor, and he probably has like almost, I think he's like at 700 million, almost $1 billion in real estate today. I found my mentor, and I was so ready to get started. And he told me his price, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it's like 5 figures. And I was just like, I don't even have $200. But we had a serious conversation, and he really got me to change my perspective on what that money would do for me and how that would change my life and all that good stuff. And I found a way to come up with the money, somehow, some way. I found a way to come up with the money. And imagine like finding a way to come up with a 5-figure check for your mentor because you want to become a syndicator. You want to do these multi-million-dollar deals. And the first thing your mentor tells you to do, like, I'm ready. I'm just like, yes, like, let's go analyze, let's go shopping, analyze the deal. I was living in Dallas at the time. Let's go. I'm ready. Let's go. He said, Daray, slow down. Here's what I want you to do first. It's like, what? Talk to me. He was like, create a platform. It's like, Joe, are you serious? His name is Joe. It's like, Joe, are you serious? It's like, create a platform. Create a public platform to get a message out. I was like, Joe, that has nothing to do with what I hired you for. You are wasting my time. He literally has put hundreds of thousands of dollars in my pocket because of what he told me to do, because I listened.
And that's so incredible. And I'm glad that you shared that. And I didn't mean to cut you off there, but one of the things, we had talked about too with me and Pedro is our mentor is Ryan Stewman, right? And he talked about regardless of what situation that you're in, regardless of how much money that you have or whatever the circumstances are, there's a few things that you can do to what we call power moves to get yourself ahead of the curve and ahead of the game and allow yourself to scale. One of them being a podcast, another being to write a book, and another one is this help a reporter out, HARO, which you can get your name featured in Forbes or Entrepreneur or whatever else just by giving them little tips. There's things that folks can do. And so I thought it was pretty neat that your mentor was sharing the same thing and because we were thinking the same thing. Okay, well, how is this directly going to help right now? He's just like, trust the process, just do it. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it wasn't my idea. So Before the Millions wasn't my idea. Obviously I came up with the name, with the concept and everything, but I needed to create the platform in order for him to get me to the next step. So I created it, and it turned out to be the best thing I've ever done. Like literally till this day, the best thing I've ever done. So again, it's a platform where I interview highly successful entrepreneurs and millionaires from all over the world. So we've gotten up to 150 millionaires from all parts of the world. And most of these millionaires have done so through real estate, right? Whether it's investing in single family homes, they're syndicators, they're developers, like just all the different strategies you could think of. And now again, like you said, it spanned to over 100 countries. There's so many people that listen to it, people pouring every single day. And it's been simply a blessing. From that platform, I was able to start getting into coaching and consulting. I told you about my first course. I did $0. It was crazy, terrible. I was so horrible. I didn't know what I was doing. I was following methods that I shouldn't have been following. It's insane. There's just so much we're not going to be able to get into today. But ultimately, the platform is called Before the Millions. I have a ton of people come on the show, give their value, give their secrets to help investors, first-time investors, young investors, newbie investors get started and take some of these tools, right? Take some of these applications, take some of these methodologies, right? And really just accentuate their business. And that's what that platform is on. That's what that platform is about. It's transformed over the years to a teaching platform. So these days we offer courses, workshops, one-on-one coaching and consulting, masterminding, all the whole gambit, right? And it's been a beautiful process so far. We're still in the early stages, just getting started, but I'm loving every single bit of it.
Man, that's so awesome. And how can folks find your course?
Yes, so I actually have a course that just came out this year. This course did the exact opposite of my house hacking course. So again, I had a house hacking course in 2017, and this year we came out with a course called the Motivated Seller Method. And it's an imperative, and I don't know how much time we have left, but So over the past month and a half, I've been in Mexico, and I was forced to come back because of COVID-19. Right. I'm a location independent entrepreneur. For those of you who don't know, I love to travel the world and to be on sabbaticals for long periods of time. So my very last sabbatical was in Mexico. I got there in February, and at the end of March, I started to see the red flags. I started to see the warning signs. I started to see like, oh my goodness, like I may need to leave way before time. But I was still just like, whatever. And then the Canadian border closed. I was like, okay. Flight attendants were sending me articles saying, yeah, they might close the Mexico border soon. You better get home. And I was like, I don't know. But ultimately, I had to, because my thought process was like, well, I'm in Mexico and there are literally almost no cases here. Nobody's running to the store for tissue. We're all chilling. Like, we're all just having a good time, like quinceañera. Like, we're just chilling, right? Meanwhile, in the US, I was looking at my timeline, like people are just going crazy. I was like, what is going on out there?
Sure.
Right? So my mindset was like, why would I go there when I can just be here, be safe, and continue, living my life as a digital nomad? And then my other mindset was, well, why not go home? Why not be around the best medical, quote unquote, the best medical, people out there? Why not be around family? Why not go quarantine with everybody? But at the same time, I was like, I don't know. I'm in a place there's not a lot of cases, and I'm gonna go to the airport and literally risk that, and then I'm gonna go to the US where all the cases are. Like, why? So I was battling myself. Long story short, I decided that I was gonna go back, and I booked the ticket last week in March. So my trip in Mexico started in Playa. The airport is in Cancun, so it's all the way at the top. So Cancun is where I land, where my flight came in. Immediately when my flight came in, I went down to Playa del Carmen for about 7 days, went back up to Cancun for 7 days, came back down to Playa del Carmen for 7 days, and then I decided to go down south for another 7 days. So ultimately, each of those cities are about 30, 45 minutes apart.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get to Tulum, my third city, I asked the locals, I was like, hey, how long is it going to take to get to the airport? Because I think I'm going to leave now. I'm kind of starting to get worried. And the locals were like, oh, it'll take about an hour. I was like, okay, cool. They told me the transportation, how it works and everything. So on the day I'm leaving, my flight is at 3:35, and I needed to make sure that I was at the airport by, let's just say 2 o'clock. I'd be good. I felt like 2 o'clock I'd be good. So I caught the ADO, which is the transport that was going to take me from Tulum to the airport. And I caught it at 12 because I knew that it was going to take an hour. So from 12 to 1, I'd be on my way to the airport, and then I'd be at the airport by 1:15, and I'd be okay. So I get there at 12. It takes a little bit longer than I thought it would take, and we don't leave until maybe about 12:45. Right. So now we're on the ADO, we're on the bus, we're headed to the airport, and 1 hour later, where I thought we would get to the airport, we're still not at the airport. So I'm thinking, okay, we're going to pull up any moment from now, but I just wanted to ask to be sure. So I asked the bus driver, I was like, hey, how far are we from the airport? He said, we're another 45 minutes. And you know that you have to check into your flight an hour before time. Mm-hmm. And there was no way for me to check into this flight. There's no way I was going to be there an hour before time at that point. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I just screwed up. And I get to the airport and it's mayhem, Trevor. It is mayhem. Everybody has gloves on, mask on, hand sanitizer, 6 feet apart. Everybody's going crazy. I was just like, what is going on? And come to find out, 80% of flights to the US got canceled. I was like, oh, I'm not leaving this place for a long time. Right. This guy walks up to me. He's like, hey, you need some help? I was like, I need some help bad. He was like, what's going on? I was like, yeah, I just missed my flight. I'm gonna go in this line and see if I can rebook. He was like, oh, yeah, you're probably not gonna be able to catch a flight today. Let me get you some transportation. Maybe you go back in the city. I'm like, what? I looked at his badge, and he didn't work for the airport or the airlines. He actually worked for a transportation company. I was like, oh, he's probably just trying to get some money out of me, get me back to the city. No, I'm okay, guy. Let me go figure out what's going on. So he was like, no. Like, seriously, like, you're probably not going to get a flight today. I think you should just go ahead and go back. And, again, he rubbed me the wrong way. So I just didn't feel like, he didn't do anything bad, but I just didn't feel like he was somebody I wanted to talk to. So I went in the customer service line to see if I can swap out my ticket. And when I get in the line, it's 50 people long. Like, literally a ton of Americans who their flights got canceled that day. They were trying to figure out how to get back. And a ton of Americans who had no flights, they were trying to figure out how to get home. So it was so long. Ultimately, what ended up happening was I was in that line for about 30 minutes. And here was the deciding point. I said, I could either stay in this line and hope that when I get to the front, they'll grant me with a secondary ticket, even though it wasn't my fault that I missed my flight. There was 1 or 2 more flights leaving out that day. And I said, would it be smarter of me to wait in this line for the next hour and 2 hours and possibly miss those flights when I could just go on my phone and buy the ticket and just buy a whole nother ticket and just be good? So I was like, you know what, let me just buy this ticket. Like, again, I was motivated. Like, I was like, I need to get back home. Like, before I got to the airport, I was okay. I was like, you know, I don't care when I go. I don't care if I miss anything. Like, I will be here till August. I don't care. But once I got to the airport and I put myself in danger, I was like, okay, if you're already here, you might as well just get home.
Sure.
So I was so motivated. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to wait in this line and find out just for them to tell me yes or tell me no. I'm just going to go ahead and buy a new ticket and just forfeit that whole ticket, whatever. So I bought a new ticket and I get out the line. Best decision. I was like, I felt happier. And that flight was leaving in about an hour and a half. I head back outside to see if I can get away to the next terminal where that flight is. And I see this guy again. He's like, yo, what happened? He's like, I was like, yeah, I didn't want to wait in that line anymore. So I just went ahead and bought a ticket. He's like, oh yeah, you bought a ticket for tomorrow. Let me go ahead and get you some transport so you can go back to the city. He's trying to get his money.
Sure.
And I was like, no, I bought a flight for today. I'm actually headed to another terminal. Thanks though. He's like, oh, I'll help you get there. I was like, okay, how much? He was just like, it's gonna be about $45. I was like, the terminal was 2 minutes. The terminal was 2 minutes away.
Go down the street, huh?
Yeah, it's 2 minutes away. He was like, yeah, but it's $45. And I was like, you know what? I've been in airports enough. I'm gonna just catch a shuttle. Thank you anyway. He's like, yeah, the shuttles, they're 2 to 3 hours behind schedule. And there's a long wait. Again, it's a pandemic right now. I was like, shoot, taxis, shoot, all of that, all my options were out of the window. And ultimately, I was just like, you know what? You can get me there within the next 5 minutes. He was like, yeah, no problem. You'll get to the next terminal. I said, you know what? Do $40 and you got a deal. Because again, I'm in Mexico. I'm used to, you know, a ride, 10 minute, 20, 30 minute ride costing 35 pesos. 35 pesos is like $1 and some change. So this is not only exorbitant for a US price, this is super exorbitant for Mexico.
But he's getting while the getting's good, huh?
Yeah.
Supplying.
So I get in the van and there's like 3 or 4 other families and they put my luggage in the back and then they walk up with the credit card reader and they swipe all of our cards and they probably made like $200 for that 3-minute trip. But here's the funny thing. When it was all said and done, the guy who I felt like was a little bit weird and I didn't really want to talk to him, I had a few laughs throughout the transaction. He helped me every step of the way, looking for flights for me. And I ended up using his service. And then what came out of my mouth next was a thank you. And then multiple more thank yous. Because he really helped me. He really saved me on a day where things could have gone left. So I highlight all of this to say, because of my predicament, because of where I was, because of what I needed, I was motivated. And an opportunity that normally would seem like something I wouldn't normally take somebody up on, in that position, I took him up on it and I thanked him for it. So when I think about the motivated seller method, my course, right, which is helping people buy real estate with none of their own money, no credit, no financing, no banks, no investors, right? The only way that we're able to pursue these methods, which are wholesaling, which are subject tos and owner financing, and also a little bit of a tenant buyer strategy, which is like a bonus. But ultimately, the only way we're able to pursue these methods and be successful, and you know this, is you can't just go on the MLS and try to wholesale a deal. That doesn't work.
Right.
You have to have somebody that's in a motivated position. And you know this as well, because you'll make these dirt cheap lowball offers, and then they'll accept it and they'll thank you for it. Because they're motivated, because you've helped them solve a different problem that was much more weighing on them than this problem. That was me at the airport. Yes, it was a lot more money, but ultimately it helped me solve my problem, that's whereas otherwise I wouldn't be able to solve that problem. So if we can think about real estate as what's the best, instead of what's the best strategy. I don't know, we talked about this on my show, remember? I was like, instead of what's the best strategy, let's cater to these motivated sellers and have the strategies in our belt to make sure that we can get them to their goal while making a profitable transaction for us. So that's MSM. And again, I appreciate you for letting me share that. But MSM is a course where I open it about twice a year. for about 1 week for people to enroll, and we'll be opening enrollment again in the fall. So if you guys want to be updated on that, head over to beforethemillions.com/MSM, and you'll get all the updates as soon as we re-release the course. You'll be the first to know, and you'll be able to get in. So that's MSM.
Man, that's awesome, man.
Awesome. Yeah.
Shoot, Daray, I want to say thanks again for coming on today, man. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to share your wealth of knowledge and wisdom with our audience, man. You've really given them some actionable steps to take. With everybody in panic mode right now, it seems like, this is an opportunity right now, that people can really look at it as such and really, build a dream life, So I appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit with them. Is there anything else that you would like to leave with our audience before we sign off?
Man, I just want to say thank you. I had a lot of fun on this episode. I think that ultimately, when it comes to being successful in anything that you do, there are certain rules of thumb that you should follow. One thing that I would love for everybody to implement is to have some type of routine, especially amidst these uncertain times. I think that a lot of people have fell out of their work routine. They're sleeping in. They're not really focused on what's next, how to capitalize. And something as simple as a morning routine. I woke up every day at 4:45. I have about an hour's worth of a morning routine, starting out with exercising, with journaling, prayers, and meditation, affirmations, things of that nature. 2 books I would recommend as far as morning routines. One is called The 5 a.m. Club, I mentioned earlier, by Robin Sharma. Another one is called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And if you follow the principles in any of those books, again, everything for me is about systems. I'm not going to go out and make my own routines. I'm going to go find a system that works, right? It shortens the learning curve. But if you have some type of morning routine, so my own morning routine, even though I told you it lasts about an hour, that's just like the meditation, the visualizations, all that. Immediately after that, I go out for a run or for a walk, or I go out exercising. And I follow the 4-Hour Body. If you guys know Tim Ferriss, that's a great book to read. So I go out for that. And then here's the kicker. By 8 a.m., I'm done with my morning routine and I'm done with my exercise. The next thing I focus on from 8 to 10 are my KPIs. And my KPIs are called, those are key principal indicators. So I focus on the 2 things. And if you can get it down to 1, even better. But I focus on the 2 things in my business that will push business forward if I don't do anything else for the rest of the day. And if I can knock those things out between 8 and 10, by 10 a.m. when my day actually starts, you can't get on my calendar before 10 a.m. But by 10 a.m. before my day actually starts, and I'm working until 9 p.m., 10 p.m., if I wanted to cancel my entire day after 9:59 a.m., I could. I've had an entire day before 10. I've gotten my workout in, I've gotten my personal development in, I've gotten the most important things done in my business by 10 a.m. And some days I just don't feel like I'm going to cancel the entire day. I've already done everything in my business. There's so much accomplished by that time. If you just have, some type of morning routine, some type of morning system, and then get to your KPIs first, the book Eat the Frog, get to your KPIs first, dude. And earlier, and this is my last thing, this is one thing that you guys should do in the morning. Earlier, I told you guys I hadn't read a single book between the ages of 18 and 25 until I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Since 25, I've read about 50 books a year. Since 20, that's a book a week. Since 25. And if there hasn't been anything else that has been that I can attribute to my success, it's reading. It's reading and getting more knowledge from people who have done it before. So add that little 10-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute read, whatever you need into your morning routine, and you'll be all the better for it.
I dig it, man. Well, hey, I just want to say thanks again for coming on, man. Again, folks, we'll make sure to drop your links in the comments below so that folks can find you. Again, we thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and advice. Pedro, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, man, I really appreciate it because I think you share a lot of important information, especially for those starting, and really great tips that can be implemented during this time. It's just about making the decision. So I really appreciate you doing that for our audience, man. Thank you so much.
Of course,
yes,
sir.
sir. Thanks, Daray. You have a good one. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Later, guys.
Bye, guys.